Welcome to Extra Takes, hosted by Northland Church Lead Pastor Dr. Joshua Laxton. Join us each week as Pastor Josh reveals the rest of the story behind his sermons. We'll discuss how those who follow Christ can live out a biblical vision for the church in our world today.
Well, howdy, Northland family and friends. Welcome to another episode of Extra Takes. Well, we are not in the studio. We are actually in the country of Turkey and the ancient city Pisidian Antioch. Now, you'll find about Pisidian Antioch actually in chapter 13 of the book of Acts. It's actually a city that Paul visited on his first missionary journey. Now, right behind me is the ruins of an old church in the Byzantine era, but before that, when Paul came here, it was the ruins of the Jewish synagogue. And so in Acts 13, we actually have the message, you could call it a sermon, that he gave that day. It's actually one of the longer sermons that you will actually see in the book of Acts, where he told the Jews and the God-fearing Greeks about Jesus' death and resurrection, about the good news of Jesus. And so what we're doing on the footsteps of Paul, we're going to all of these cities that Paul visited, some on his first missionary journey, many on the second missionary journey. And so what I want to encourage you with is this idea never to lose sight of the gospel. Because what you can see right here is that there's ruins. And so at some point, this city lost the gospel. Now, the gospel came, the gospel was received, the roots took up, and the roots came up, and we experienced a lot of fruit here. But as you can see now, is that there are a lot of ruins. So we're here in some sense to pay respects to what God did almost 2,000 years ago. So what I just told the group is that there is a life cycle even in churches, that there are churches that are planted, they grow, they hit their prime, they begin to manage, they begin to decline, and eventually they die. And so all these places in Turkey, we're seeing where the church once flourished, but now it is not even really here. What's sad is that you will see mosques all over the place. And so here's what I really want to challenge you with this week in this podcast. It's a shorter segment because next week we'll have a longer segment and give a summary of what we experienced, and you'll get to hear from many of those who are part of our group. But here's what I want to leave you with is let us never lose sight of the gospel and the centrality of Jesus, not only in our life, but the life of our church. Because here's what we know, that as long as we have the focus on the light of the world in our life, and who is the light of the world, and as we allow the Spirit of God to renew us, to fill us, then we will never experience ruins like this. So that's why it's so important for churches to focus on Jesus and what God is doing at Northland. Oh my goodness, the joy of the Lord is filling us. We're seeing that the Spirit of God is filling us. We're seeing men, women, boys, and girls come to know Jesus, and we're seeing the church grow. And so let us never take that for granted, because we could be like this. But because of God's grace, His goodness, and that the gospel is prevalent and center in our midst, we are experiencing life and new life. And so let that sit with you. We love you dearly. Oh my goodness, we love you. Miss you. And I cannot wait to bring you a full episode of Extra Takes next week. Blessings.
Thanks for listening to Extra Takes. Be sure to follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts so you won't miss a single episode.